Hello, my name is Linda, and I am here to talk about software for court-appointed special advocates for foster youth. And here's the Twitter and the Slack and the email. Who uses email? Who am I? I've been a developer since 2010. I started my career at ThoughtWorks, which is a consultancy. I've worked in a variety of industries, including airlines and payment processing, and now I work in health tech. I work in health tech because I have figured out what I want to do with the rest of my life, which, by the way, is terrifying. I plan to spend the rest of my foreseeable future taking my revenge upon the USA healthcare system by trying to improve it. Heck yes. Shout out to my open source supportive employer, Parachute Health. They help patients get their prescribed durable medical equipment like wheelchairs and CPAPs, attempting to replace some fax machines somewhere, working on it. We are hiring, talk to me. And I have been a lead of the CASA project since it started in 2019. Some quick definitions because we do have namespace collisions. CASA is a nonprofit which trains volunteers to help foster youth. Ruby for Good is a nonprofit which builds software for other nonprofits. Ruby for Good CASA project is software written by Ruby for Good to help CASA. This talk is about this one particular project and specifically creating an ecosystem for writing open source software, specifically software as a service open source software, which serves volunteers who serve foster youth. Foster youth. Raise your hand if, 3, 2, 1, audience participation, you have ever thought about the USA foster care system. Ever had it cross your mind? Rock on, all right, you can put your hands down. A lot of people have. A lot of people know somebody or work somewhere or volunteered somewhere or read something. When I started this project, I was not super familiar with it. A recap of things you need to know today. Details differ per state. In general, there are around 400,000 youth in foster care on any given day. These are youth ages 0 through 18 or 21, depending on region and circumstances, who are not under their original parental guardianship. A youth can exit the foster care system via reunification or adoption or emancipation. And of course, you can read more at these links. About 50 years ago, a judge in the 70s said, you know, I don't think I know enough to make these decisions about the care of foster youth. I want somebody to go out and find me some more data. And the thing that he created grew up to be the CASA organization. CASA is a national organization with many local chapters corresponding to court regions, because the court regions vary in small but significant ways in how they want you to do things. Volunteers go through 30 hours of training plus continuing education required. They're sworn in by a judge for a 2-year minimum and assigned to one youth, maybe 2 if there's siblings. And they gather information, they talk to everybody involved in the care of the youth, and they file a court report every 6 months, informing the court and, of course, showing up in court to provide all relevant information that they can. These volunteers, some of them are in law school, but a lot of them are retired. They are very good at what they do. They do not all love paperwork. So we are part of that second part. How are they funded? They each find their own. There are grants that they work to get, but they each find their own. What do they do right now and how? The CASA volunteer talks to the youth, of course, the parents, the health professionals, the teachers, everybody. They take notes. They remind people. They do a lot of phone calls. There are a lot of phone calls. A volunteer has a supervisor. The supervisor is with their parent CASA organization, so CASA Prince George County, Maryland, CASA Montgomery. Volunteers are unpaid. Sometimes they get mileage reimbursements. The supervisors help them get the right format for their court reports, help them remember to follow up with everyone involved in a case, not just the youth or the people who are easy to reach. And of course, the volunteers attend their ongoing training. The data that we gather is very useful for proving that a CASA is doing something useful in particular, like 300 hours this week type of thing. That is not our purpose. That is not what we are here for. That is a nice accidental byproduct. There are lots of pieces of software that do something like what we do. We are not trying to compete with them. We are not trying to compete with them. Our work is a nice addendum to what they have. Our uniqueness is maximum simplicity for the volunteer. And we're free, and we're friendly. We work closely with the CASA organization to implement the changes that they want. And that is why they put up with us taking their precious time, because we are very responsive to what they want. Volunteers are the heart of what gets done. Volunteer retention is extremely important. How do you retain a volunteer? It is in large part related to their relationship with their supervisor. We do not want to mess with that relationship. We want to support it, we want to sustain it, we want to make it easier. We do not want to replace it, we do not want to make it more distance. That is extremely important. Who's we? I keep saying we. So Ruby for Good is an organization. They have a lot of projects, not just CASA. We are, I think, the coolest, but we are definitely not the only one. Some currently ongoing: Human Essentials, Terra Stories, Circulate, Tool Library, Shelter Assist, which is brand new, Mutual Aid, Abalone, and others. They have a whole website about all the cool things they've done historically. The purpose of the organization is both to create software for nonprofits and to be a friendly place to do nonprofit contributions. Growing the tech community broader than it otherwise would be by helping people in, usually people who otherwise would bounce off or have a harder time or have a longer road, by making it easy and possible to contribute to software in general, regardless of skill level. Let me say that again, regardless of skill level. That's a little different than getting a pull request merged into some projects that I have not merged pull requests into. Ruby for Good hosts 2 yearly events. People show up in person or not in person lately and pick a project, get onboarded, contribute. That's cool. How did they get together with CASA? A former CASA volunteer is now a software developer and joined Ruby for Good. How did I get here in 2019? I signed up for a conference, naive I know. I checked the box saying, would you like to be a tech lead? I did not know what that box meant. I felt confident. Thank you, always nice to be acknowledged. I got assigned to CASA, that was cool. We did a lot of planning, we did a lot of UI mockups, we did a lot of database schema planning, and then 2020, we, surprise, had a remote conference with maybe a month of warning. It went very well, thanks to the flexibility of the attendees, and a lot of spreadsheets, and a lot of Zoom breakout rooms, and a lot of hard work. So what did we build, and what have we built since then? Guided tour, go. Here's our login page. This photo is from CASA National Marketing. We picked one that only has a youth in it because that's what we're here for. We don't need a picture of a volunteer, we need a picture of a youth. We are fully responsive for mobile. Volunteers can use it from whatever device they have, wherever they are. And we have an Android app, which is a very thin layer over all of this, basically to make it possible to find in the App Store. We're working on iOS. This is the most important page in the application. It glows when I look at it. I know that to you it's just a web page, but when I look at it, it glows. A case contact is when the volunteer talks to somebody related to the care of the youth's case. The categories and contact types are fully customizable per CASA and per youth. So if this youth doesn't have a sibling would not show up in this list. And that is very important to them because this is meant to be a kind of checklist. And a personalizable system is something that they don't believe can be true, and we are trying to make it true. Contact made means, did they pick up the phone? Did they answer the door? You know, if the volunteer drove an hour to get there and nobody showed up, that's still work and we still want to record it. And it's important to record it so that you know, hey, this is an area which we need to follow up on. This is the most important field on this most important page. This is notes. Notes is just a text field. You can put anything in it you want, and yes, that worries me. In production, on average, this is about 400 words, peaking at several thousand words. This is where the majority of the effort of the volunteers goes. This is where they write down their thoughts and feelings and concerns and plans and notes. And we ask them to please not put PII, personally identifiable information, in here because we do not want to hold it, but they can do anything we want, and no, I do not audit it in production, so we are very protective of this data. So after you've created that case contact, This is the case details page. I just want to step back for a minute. So this page, there's a lot of stuff on this page. There's a lot of buttons on this page. This is maybe 100 to 150 pull requests and GitHub issues that you're looking at right here. So in the top left, there is a butterfly. I like the butterfly. That butterfly is definitely my fault. That means that they are a transition-aged youth, so a teenager, generally somewhere in the 14 and up range, which affects how you want to treat the case and the training that different people get. Front and center, there are the court orders, otherwise known as court mandates, otherwise known as things that the judge has said you shall do. Those are very important, and it's important to be reminded of them on a very regular basis. We want to make them bigger, prettier, maybe sparkly. We're thinking about it. If you're a designer, come talk to me. Top right, there is that generate report button for that all-important court report. It downloads in a Word format because Word format is the language of the land. And right next to it, I swear I'll move on in a minute, there's the emancipation checklist. The emancipation checklist is very important. Emancipation means you have aged out of foster care. It's complicated, but anyway. And so the checklist is things like, do you have a driver's license? Have you ever had a job? Do you have a place to stay when you are no longer being provided a place to stay? Important stuff that it is good for the volunteer to keep in mind when they keep track of things. And brand new, there's a little button for the supervisor to remind the volunteer, hey, how are you doing in there, buddy? I love you a lot. I haven't heard from you in a while, in case that is useful to have it come from the system instead of from them. We export data. They have a special button for mileage reports because some people don't want to edit all of their own Excel files all the time when we could do it for them in code. And then we have a generalized report with all the filters we could possibly think of. We do not want to lock up their data behind any type of wall. We want to let the people who should have it, which is the admins of the CASA, so they can download the reports and talk to their volunteers and talk to their supervisors and plan their grant proposals, all that good stuff. We have imports. Oh man, imports. Have you ever tried to import a CSV-like file? Yes. Okay. We will go into this in great depth later. What we import is all of the supervisors and volunteers and cases and the relationships between them. When a CASA joins a system, of course, they import all 300 or 500 of their volunteers plus supervisors and cases. Cases always outnumber volunteers, unfortunately. And we have a great UI pattern, which we generated from scratch for ourselves. I'm sure it's in a book somewhere. If you want someone to upload a CSV, give them a downloadable CSV in the same format. That makes it very easy for them to fill it out with their own data and give it back to you. Wonderful. When you've imported your volunteers, you can edit them, you can activate them, deactivate them, assign them to a case or multiple cases, assign them to a supervisor. Our users love our UI. I want you to know that. Our users love our UI. It is simple, it is user-friendly, there is nothing there that they do not need. That's pretty cool. It's not too flashy, but it is loved. So volunteers. Why do volunteers volunteer? Why do contributors contribute? Because we have those namespace collisions, of course. Volunteers here are CASA volunteers, and contributors are people who do things in GitHub. Just making that clear. A lot of our contributors contribute because they want a better job, or to feel like they know enough for their current job. A lot of them want to work specifically on open source software because they believe that that is a good thing to do. And a lot of them want to meet the kind of people who want to help other people. And that is pretty great. Why do maintainers maintain? How do maintainers maintain? What does maintaining mean? For me, my job, my not a job, is about 80% making it easy for other people to do work. I love it when other people do work. It's fantastic. I love other people doing work. I like coding. I do it for fun. I do it for work. When I want extra fun, I do it for CASA, but that is not the core value that I provide. The core value that I provide is encouragement and being a safety net. I am one of the several people, hopefully all of us, who say, you can do it. One of the very reassuring things I say to new contributors is, it's okay if your pull request is really, really bad. If it's really, really bad, I promise not to merge it. And they find that tremendously reassuring for some reason. And then I say, oh, we'll improve it together, come to office hours, please just open the PR, please just open the PR. You should ask about that in Slack. Oh, yep, that looks like a bug. Please file that bug. Please file that bug. So open source, but software as a service open source. That's different. That's a little unusual. Some things we have going for us. Merging doesn't make it real. Because I have merged it does not mean it is production, and that is great. We also don't have a giant continuous integration matrix. We don't have backwards compatibility issues except with our own database. And of course, we need hosting. Software as a service in general, a lot of people work on for work. We are holding someone else's data. That is important. We should keep it safe. What you are not holding, you cannot drop. What you are not holding, you cannot drop. We have stakeholders who are non-technical. They speak a different language, and we need an expert translator. Having an expert translator is very useful, usually called a PM, maybe an analyst, sometimes called me. And of course, we need to do some amount of customer support, and we need uptime. We need it to actually be on so people can use it. Our job does not end at publishing a deployable. We have priorities. Data safety. Data safety is always on top. Do not give someone's data to anyone other than that someone, and someone on the level of CASA organizations often. We want to make the CASA volunteers' lives easier and the lives of CASA as a whole more sustainable, more efficient. And we want to help our contributors grow their skills. We want to be a healthy place for people to make their first ever pull requests if possible. That is great. That is a triumph for us. And feel happy about it. That part is also required. And in order to do that, we need a pipeline of work. So what do we do? What works for us? Let's talk extremely granular nitty-gritty. I have a list. This is inspiration. This is not a guide. This is not what you should do. This is what we do. First and foremost, human impact. It is wonderful that we have a very clear and simple causal chain between the work that we do and helping human beings that you could identify if they were not anonymous. Because we do not keep youth names, we keep youth case numbers, which are different than names in public. A lot of our contributors are already specifically interested in improving this particular ecosystem. A lot of them become interested over time as they learn more about what we do and the contributors that we have. And they talk to the stakeholders every week and they hear about our work. So how do we talk to our stakeholders? We talk to them every week, half an hour a week. And they show up again because they like us and because they want to tell us about our bugs, and so that we can extract from them ideas for features that we want to build, because we always need more features that we want to build. We live blog it into Slack, and then we pick the highlights into our Word document, or Google Drive document, which has been open since 2019. It's a weird feeling to be editing the same document for like several years. And the administrators of the CASAs talk to each other. They cross-chatter during these calls, and they love it. They love telling each other their problems. And we love listening to it because it gives us ideas. We send them a weekly email every time we deploy. We deploy weekly, and we always, always, always CC the main account, CASA at Ruby for Good, on anything so it doesn't get locked in someone's inbox and nobody has to come back from vacation to frantic demands that we need the images that someone emailed them in October. We have a smart bug reporter that gently guides non-technical people through good bug reports. Got to get that URL, got to get that user level, got to get that part of the page, because we want the minimum level of effort with the maximum return. And we have YouTube playlists. That's how cool we are. We have YouTube playlists, and with walkthroughs of the website. Our volunteers really like watching walkthroughs of seeing people use the website. That is of great value to them. And that Typeform publishes to our private Slack channel because you can type anything in a Typeform, and we don't necessarily want it to be public. We have a very strong cadence. I'm a very big believer in cadence and breaks. We have our weekly stakeholder sync. We have our weekly office hours on the same day, so we can go through our notes and understand what they meant and transform them into GitHub issues and action items. We have a weekly deploy. We skip it for big holidays. We skip it when we're tired, but you never have to work to remember when it is. And we've got slow times between big events, which is wonderful because you need to rest sometimes. What about those big events? Last week was Ruby for Good East in the DC area. People show up, now you are friends. They choose a project, they onboard, we write pull requests. It's pretty great. That was my first in-person event in a very long time, and it was terrifying, but it was wonderful. And we do kind of like project level deep directions setting, think like development sprints. So that's pretty good. We also are a destination for company offsites. We are very happy for companies who want to give back to their community to come hang out with us for a day or a week and demolish our backlog. Even better, they bring their PMs and QAs and designers to help replenish our backlog and set up that future direction. And if your company is interested, please email us. We are interested in you right back. Hacktoberfest started today. Hacktoberfest is an event which encourages and rewards open source software contributions. For us, it is great. It can be hard on maintainers of big, famous projects. As you can see, last year, it worked very well for us, and we are already seeing it work very well for us this year. We have a public calendar that contributors can subscribe to and owned by that shared account, so it doesn't go missing if someone's email becomes unavailable. And of course, we've got that invite for our stakeholders so they know when and where to show up and where the Zoom link is, and we add new stakeholders when we get them. So that is pretty cool. Got to put that Zoom link somewhere. And we have Slack. Everyone has Slack. We are part of the Ruby for Good Slack, which is great. Great for cross-pollination between projects. We get ideas from them, they get ideas from us. And they provide moderation and invite management so that we don't have to. Thank you. We have an active public channel with channel reminders for meetings. We have a private channel for maintainers to discuss maintainer things, mostly for the Typeform bug report, to show up and for various people to say, hey, I won't be there today, which is great. And we have a bot channel, which is extremely noisy, as it should be, for pull requests and issues and errors and deploys. It's a good heartbeat for the project. It's a source of memory. Historical record, you're like, I saw a bug on Monday. I wonder if I can find it. There it is. We have continuous integration. It runs all of our tests on every pull request and on the main branch on every new pull request merge. It's split into parallel named build sections, which is very convenient to be able to see what the heck happened in there. And it runs on GitHub Actions. As you can see, we use GitHub. Dependabot is so great. If you have a project on GitHub, use Dependabot. It opens pull requests to upgrade your dependencies so that you don't get into the situation where you show up and you need to upgrade something, and then that depends on something else, and then that something else is broken. It keeps you out of that mess entirely, and it is my favorite. We use GitHub Project Management. GitHub Project Management is simple, basic, but automatable. And we've got those sweet, sweet workflow automations going on. This is one of my favorite power tools. We have automated a great deal of maintainer emotional labor, specifically when an issue has been assigned to someone and there has been no pull request or comment for a certain number of days, and now you need to remind somebody, and a while after that you need to unassign it. The bot does that for us in a very nice, repeatable way that does not involve anyone waking up with a to-do list item, and it is fantastic. We use GitHub Wiki for our deployment checklists, for our who's who, for our historical record, pull request templates, issue templates, all that great GitHub stuff. A note on GitHub permissions, lock down your main branch. Please lock down your main branch. Nobody should be able to force push to it. If you really need to, for reasons which we will not discuss here, remove the permission, do it, and then put the permission back. CASA is a little strange with branches. We prefer branches to forks where possible, because if there is a branch and that branch is ready to merge except for that one little thing, then the maintainer can go in there and do that one little thing and merge it, instead of waiting for that one little thing to get done and then merging it. Or there's many alternatives, but this is the one that is most convenient for us. But forks are more educational because that is how the world works now. So some of each. Git and GitHub are one of the harder parts for new contributors getting started in open source. And it always has been, even though it's much easier now. So just trying to make it easier where we can. We use issue templates. Issue templates are great. You can tell I've been here because of all those sparkly emoji. Building a template is an art. These are the best pieces of many other excellent artifacts. We want the minimum that will make for better user contributions, and while still guiding our users to do what we need them to do. We deploy every week, heck yeah. A merge pull request auto-deploys to QA, and then there's a button to manually deploy to staging if you have permission to see the button, and a button to manually deploy to prod. And we have a deploy checklist where we check on our database backups and check on our email health. Got to make sure that bounce rate isn't too high. We use Heroku cron for those Monday morning emails to the supervisors like, hey, here's everything your volunteers have done this week. And we have code. We have lots and lots of code. We've got so much code. We have a lot of tests. A lot more than half our code is tests. Tests are very important. They are our only defense against ourselves. And a pull request without sufficient testing might get merged, but we will file a chore to add more testing to it. Maybe to refactor something if we want to. To reduce complexity, we try to keep the absolute minimum of JavaScript. We are a mostly server-side rendered application, but we do have some. Everyone has some. It just creeps in around the edges. It's wonderful. We have a README. The README is very important. That's how new contributors experience your project. That's how they get used to what you're doing. Our README is very successful because many people have successfully gotten set up because of it. That is the criteria. For dependencies, we try to stay basic and stay picky. Every dependency is a liability that can come back and bite you. On the other hand, you don't want to write your authentication and authorization yourself. We want the best of both worlds. It makes life sad sometimes to want the best of everything. But we get it done. We have picked the least configurable linter we could find. Thank you, Standard RB. We have a Docker development environment, which not everyone uses, but it runs in CI, so we do not break it again. And of course, we've got that thin Android app. We have realistic seed data, which is very cool because when you run locally, you need to fill in that seed data so that you can see what the application really looks like. You don't want to have to do that by hand. You want to just be able to blow your database away, reseed, and be good to go. And we populate that seed data, a larger form of it, in staging and QA so that our users can look at it and not be distracted by invalid data when they're trying to decide whether or not they like a particular feature. Oh, this is the good stuff. This is controversial. You will not like it, some of you. We merge pull requests very fast where possible. Fast merging increases contributor stickiness. We need contributor stickiness. People stick around because they feel that their work is valued. We have a cultural expectation that a maintainer approves a pull request and then immediately merges it. Doesn't wait for someone to merge their own pull request. That's a little weird. If there's notes like, oh, could you refactor this method? Could you refactor this test? Could you add this test? We ask that the contributor add them in a follow-up pull request. And we find that that produces a large number of follow-up pull requests containing the desired changes. It works very well for us. We originally started this to minimize merge conflicts during on-site events where we had a very high volume. And we kept going because we liked the way it feels. By the way, this is not all Ruby for Good projects. This is just us. We're weird. That's good. That's fine. We can do this because merging deploys, but not to production. We get that safety net. We've got all those tests. Love those tests. Tests are my favorite. And community. Last, our community is great. We don't need to negotiate with Heroku for server time. That gets handled. And if we have an urgent bug or an urgent feature, then I can just post in general and be like, send help, and help actually shows up. I have a lot of trust in this because we have used it several times and it worked. I highly recommend having a large group of people who can show up and fix your bugs. Summarize. There are things we want to keep doing because they're working for us. We want to be people at each other. We want to be chill sometimes. We like group events. We like powerful tools. We want to deploy often but carefully and be a little paranoid about our dependencies and merge pull requests as fast as we can. All right, hard things, things that give us trouble. I have a list. There's always a list. These are not your problems. These are our problems. You probably also have these problems. You may not know about your problems. We always need more issues. Unlike many open source projects, our issues mostly do not come from contributors. They mostly come from stakeholders filtered through maintainers because stakeholders speak a different language that does not translate exactly into GitHub issues. And that translation takes work. In a regular week, we'll go through 2 or 10 GitHub issues. During one of our big events, we will go through our entire 150 issue backlog within the week, which is great, but also a problem. This is a great problem to have, but it is still a problem that we have. because writing issues takes effort, and we have people who do that as their main contribution, people who don't write code, people who just write issues, and that is fantastic, and we love them. When I write an issue for myself, it says, fix the button on the edit page. Which edit page? Which button? Which fix? Is there a button? Did there used to be a button? Write the issues for the people that you want to solve them. I highly recommend not writing issues for yourself unless you want yourself to be the only one who will solve them, which does not work very well. Another thing that we have problems with is system edges, import. I told you we'd come back to import, specifically with table-based data. The volunteers, CASA supervisors, and the linkages between them, those cross-references are what really get you. If you're importing data and there's a duplicate unique key, which in this case would be an email, do you override the data? Do you keep the old data? Do you show an error and not do anything until the user resolves it? If there's two rows that are the same, do you deduplicate them? What if they're different? Same problem. If row 1 and row 2 depends on 1, but row 1 fails, what do you do with row 2? Do you try to import it like halfway? That's what we do because that's what our users want. But that might not be what you should do, and that was not immediately obvious that it should be what we do. And of course, how do you display per row errors for a spreadsheet with hundreds of errors? It will take up your entire web page and nobody will read it. We give you a downloadable CSV with an error per line of the original upload so that you can edit them as needed as possible. Whew. I don't know if you care, but I could talk about this indefinitely. What else? System edges, export. Word is hard. Did you know that? Word documents are difficult. We use user-supplied Word templates and fill them with user-supplied data, and we want them to look nice. So we already know we have an impossible problem. That's good. And then we slice and dice that data based on like date ranges, and we're just doomed. But it is currently working very well, and we tune it a little bit for each new court report template as we find new and exciting bugs. We are currently using Sablon, which is not the most popular Ruby gem for it, so kind of contradicting our previous statement, but it works very, very good for the kind of thing that we need to do. What else? Memory. Memory is hard. All projects have this problem. I don't think that anyone can fix this problem, but it's what we have. So by memory, I mean, hey, why did we do that? Hey, why is this here? Things that you already know, the collective you, but that the singular you does not know. Things that we know that I do not know. You can search Slack history, you can search GitHub issues, you can search the wiki, you can search the meeting docs. We have architectural decision records, and of course we have verbal history, which is to say, go ask somebody, and it is never ever enough. And all projects have this, and I don't really think we can fix this. But anyway, it's on the list. Testing. Testing is in some ways an art. How do you teach good testing, especially when everyone disagrees about what good testing is? Good testing is a skill. It is hard to put in acceptance criteria. You can talk about code coverage, but code coverage is not sufficient. Style is also important. Coverage doesn't even mean that you're fully covered. What about flaky tests? What about testing at the wrong level? Unit versus system tests. So I think we lean hard on ERB. How do you test ERB in like a correct and sufficient manner? Stuff like that. And then finally, missing contributor feedback. Some people show up one time and then leave, and then we never hear from them again. And yes, this bothers me because we will never know what happened. Was it me? Was it us? Was it, you know, they just had the wrong bagel? Like, we will never know. Some other people leave the project in the best way by getting a new job that they like a lot, probably partially from connections and encouragement and knowledge that we contributed to. That's pretty great. We can just measure the number and contribution lifespan of contributors, send out surveys, read the responses if we get any, and just work on it that way. So, to summarize, backlogs are hard. System edges, that's supposed to be a dragon, here be dragons. Future archaeology, testing the art, testing the science, and getting feedback from contributors. Contributors. Encourage contributors, become strong contributors. Most of our contributors come in because a friend told them that we're the kind of project that will let them work, that will help them work. Contributors bring energy. They can grow knowledge. They don't need to bring the knowledge. They will grow the knowledge. And they can spend their extra time and energy onboarding more contributors for us and pitching us to their friends. Hint, hint, hint. How do you encourage someone? That's a hard question with an easy answer. Say the words, you can do it, you got this, that idea sounds good, please do it. That is the first, easiest, and best step. A note on purpose. What is your project's purpose? Your project has a purpose. That's the easy one. What are your contributors' purposes? What do they want out of contributing to your project? Is it fame? Is it money? Is it connections? You don't necessarily need to solve whatever problem or solution that is, but knowing what the goal is helpful. What are your users' purposes? Our users their purpose is not to use our software. Their purpose is to get what they need to do done. And if we are useful in that occasion, then that will work out for us. And if it isn't, then it won't. And last, what is your purpose as a maintainer? What do you want to get out of this? What do you think the goal is? Recap of technical tips. When you want users to upload a spreadsheet, provide a downloadable sample spreadsheet. Use GitHub workflows to automate emotional labor around ticket management. Pull requests that deployed cleanly individually may not deploy cleanly together, especially if they are editing the same table. And Word documents are hard. Word documents save edit history, which is not visible in Word, but is visible directly in LibreOffice or other tools. Check for sensitive info before attaching one to a GitHub issue. And after you have failed that, then delete it, send apologetic emails, and file a takedown request for your own project pull request with GitHub. Thank you, GitHub. To recap, safety nets are great. Multi-level safety nets, multiple maintainers, a deployment pipeline, lots of tests, a backing organization if you can land one. Multiple purposes, serving our stakeholders, growing our contributors, having a strong cadence that's impossible to forget but easy to skip during the slow times, and sustainable maintainership requires rest. Oh God. So help, we would like your help. Please send help. The thing that I want the most that may not be available is more CASA regional organizations. We are at 4-ish out of over 900. We've got space. Come on, we're free and we're friendly. If you happen to know someone who knows someone who would like to trial a free tool, we are happy to be those people. We also really like PMs and QAs and designers to come and tell us their opinions and their thoughts. And pull requests. Pull requests are the bread and butter, especially that testing and refactoring. Heck yeah. And thanks to all of the many people who make this happen, and many more that do not have space here. And questions. Do we have an extra minute? We do. Case numbers. Case numbers have meaningful formats that vary per court region. And so they start with letters like CINA and TPR, child in need of assistance and termination of parental rights, and then that first number is the year that you enter the court system, and then that second number is the year, is the number youth you are within the year. That's, you get collisions between court organizations, and that affects how you build your URLs, because you know you're gonna have collisions if you use useful data namespaces, so you need an extra namespace. Common question, what is fictive kin? Fictive kin is non-blood relations. And I see that we are at time, and I should probably stop. Working with Word documents, watch out for those rendering issues. I will not tell you about every gem. Maintainer selection is hard. We would like to do something slightly different. It is informal, you do a lot of work, you get a message, you get permissions, you do a lot more work, and then optional fade away. We would like to we would like to invite people to be maintainers before they've done all of a great deal of hard work, so that you can grow into the role as other people have. And finally, our QA pipeline, or our deployment pipeline, which is small and simple and beautiful and saves us so much trouble. QA to staging to production. Looks a little bit like Jenkins if you squint. And it is my favorite, and that is all.